My name's Keith Nitka, and I'm proud to be the Battleship Operations Manager on board Battleship Wisconsin. I want to thank you for joining me today on this Whiskey Wednesday virtual adventure. Today I'm with a former crew member, Gene Gomulka. Gene was one of the chaplains on board Battleship Wisconsin. He was here during the last commissioning period, so Gene and I served together on board the ship. He's a shipmate of mine. Gene, thank you so much, shipmate, for coming
Thank
by
you,
and
Keith.
coming on board.
Real pleasure being aboard.
So I didn't ask you this before, I meant to. When was the last time you were on board the ship?
The last time was I was here for the decommissioning.
Okay.
Okay,
1991.
19 September
Yep.
1991. That was really the last time. So my 2-year tour was up in July of 91.
So this is the first time you've been back since you left the ship as a crew member.
That's first time.
Outstanding. So let's go back to the beginning, so to speak. So as a chaplain, how did you end up joining the Navy?
When I was in high school, I had 2 role models in my life. My brother was in the Navy, and then we had a young priest in our church who motivated me. And so, to make a long story short, I ended up when I studied in Rome. When I didn't realize at the time that I probably would not have been accepted into the Navy had I gone right after high school.
All right.
Because I didn't realize that my perforated right tympanic membrane was a disqualifier.
Wow.
Now, then you ask, well, how did I get to the Navy later on? Well, I got a waiver.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, when I was, I went the priesthood route, and when I was studying in Rome, I was ordained, and I went back to get another degree. And while I was there as a priest on weekends, I worked for the Sixth Fleet as a contract chaplain.
All right.
Every weekend from Rome, I would drive down to Gaeta. My tours were very, very, very positive. You know,
yeah,
they were so positive that I decided, look, I think I'm going to stay. So I was with 2nd Marine Division for 2 years,
right,
out of Camp Lejeune, the Naval Academy for 2 years out of Annapolis, and then 6th Fleet, 2 years there, then Chief of Chaplain's Office, and then the Battleship Wisconsin.
Right. And that's an interesting story too. You told me once before how you ended up here on board Battleship Wisconsin. So if you tell me again, because it is, I find it very fascinating.
What really happened in terms of the big story?
Yeah,
I had orders working in the Chief of Chaplain's Office to subbase Pearl Harbor, and then they were going to send me to the Iowa.
Yes.
As the deputy chaplain, I was the 2nd chaplain, and I would be working for another chaplain. But because I knew the commanding officer of the Iowa, I said, well, look, if I go there, my very close personal relationship with the commanding officer might be a threat to my senior chaplain, whom I would be working for. He might, because what if the commanding officer is always calling me, yes, instead of wanting to go through the person I work for? I said that could put him in maybe an uneasy sort of working situation. And the Chief of Chaplains said, I think you have a point there. I wouldn't want to put, that would be a very untenable situation. So he said, oh, we found another place for you. The chaplain, the priest on board, Wisconsin is rolling. We'll send you there, and you will be the command chaplain. And this way, if you get along with commanding officer, then nobody's going to have a problem with that. Had it not been for the dentist,
yes,
I would be dead today. Jeff Turner, while we were having breakfast in the wardroom, and he said, Chaplain, you don't look too good. You feeling okay? I said, Doc, I feel like I'm dying. So what's wrong? He said, well, I talked to the ship's doctor, and he said, oh, Lieutenant so-and-so, he was sick for 6 months. You'll be okay.
Right.
But you see, the problem was, Keith, the doc here only had an X-ray. So he did not have the diagnostic tools that were required in my case. So Doc Turner, a dentist, not a medical officer, a dental officer, recommended, look, you really need to get a second opinion. And fortunately, as you know, the comfort was at that point was there. So that Sunday, after I finished my breakfast with Jeff, I boarded the Hilo, the Holy Hilo, flew around all the ships in the Gulf,
Yeah.
all day flying around, hoisting up and down or landing, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then before coming back to the Wisconsin, I said to the pilot, "Do me a favor, drop me off on the Comfort there." You know,
Yes.
and again, we had the assets, no problem. Yes, sir. You know, dropped me off, and again, the ship was filled. Half of Bethesda was on that ship.
Yes.
You know, and immediately when I said, "Hey, is there a dock?" and
Yeah.
overwhelmed. Make a long story short, again, they put me through the CAT scan. They diagnosed me with all the symptoms I had, that I was suffering from some form of cancer. They didn't know what particular type of cancer, how far it may have spread,
Mm-hmm.
what stage 1, 2, 3, or 4. But again, to make a long story short, fortunately, they medevaced me, went back to Bethesda. While I was there, ran into a chaplain who was making the rounds, and we talked, and I said, how long are you going to be here? She said, well, I have orders to Washington, but I really don't, I'm not due there for another 6 months. I said, great. Why don't you come take my place on board Wisconsin? They'll give me this treatment. I'll get better. Then you can go back, you can go to Washington, and I'll come back to the ship, take over where I left off.
Sure.
In the long run, it worked out great.
I do believe that everything does happen for a reason. Everything is set in motion by something else for a purpose. And you were talking about possibly being replaced. I got to tell you, Gene, you could not have been replaced. There's no way that you could.
No.
You could not have been replaced.
No,
and
I mean,
I was very happy when you came
I
back to the ship. So, Gene, walk us through real quick the life of a chaplain on board Battleship Wisconsin.
Well, every day is a little different, depending on what day of the week it is and where we are and what's going on in the world. A battleship battle group,
Mm-hmm.
like a carrier battle group, has other escorts. Most of those ships will not have, if they have a chaplain, it's going to be a Protestant chaplain ordinarily.
Okay.
And because as a Catholic chaplain, one of my responsibilities is not only to take care of the work with the crew, but also to minister to the other ships. A lot of times you don't have services on a Sunday because of operational things. So you may have to go there on a Wednesday or a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So one, am I going to be on the ship or am I going to be flying around? But if I am on board, there's a certain amount of counseling that you do. Most of these problems that our shipmates experience are relationship problems because you're going to be concerned if you're married, your wife, you get a letter, or if you have a relative that's sick or dying and so forth. And then the chaplain has to advise the commanding officer, do I think this person qualifies for emergency leave? Because you don't want to release someone who doesn't have a valid reason. But on the other hand, if they do, you can't want to keep him here while he can't work because his mind's on this problem at home. I would do daily mass on board the ship as a priest. We would have Bible study. And then we, of course, on Sundays, we'd have services, weekend services. And so the main, and then plus you have a certain amount of deck plate ministry, because if I have to wait for somebody to come to knock on my door or make an appointment, a lot of times sailors, I don't want to bother them or I don't want to be seen. So it's much easier if I go down to the mess deck, sit down and join you for lunch or breakfast or dinner. Or if I could be walking, on the deck outside and there's a sailor, he's looking out to sea and he seems kind of sad. I said, hey, how's it going, shipmates? Chaplain, I feel terrible. I said, well, what's wrong? I miss my wife and my kid. We just had a kid before we deployed. I said, wow, how bad do you feel? Terrible. I can't sleep. My gut, I can't concentrate. I just feel so bad. I said, well, congratulations. I'm very happy for you.
Yeah.
He said, what? Didn't you hear what I said? I told you. I'm depressed. You're supposed to be empathetic. Say, I'm sorry. You're congratulating me? Look, the fact that you miss your wife and your newborn child, to me, says you love them very much. If you had a wife and child back there and you didn't miss them, I'd be worried about you.
Yes.
Because I would say you don't have love in your life, but the fact that you hurt, because the more you love,
Mhm.
the more you hurt. The more you're going to hurt.
Yeah.
Love, hurt. But be patient. We're not going to be deployed forever. We got a good command. We're going to make it through this deployment.
Yes.
You're going to be back home with your wife and your child, and you're going to have a wonderful life together. So that's the kind of work a chaplain does.
I finish all these with that part of the Navy that some people don't give any thought to, because we're not initially trained to fight. It's not what we do in the Navy. We have jobs. But of course, with general quarters, that's battle stations, and we're typically fighting something or someone, or we're being attacked or something like that. Not everybody fits into that sort of role, a fighting role. Chaplain, I can't think would actually fit into that kind of role. So we go to general quarters. The alarm sounds. We go to battle stations. What does a chaplain do?
We have two chaplains on a battleship. Chaplain would go aft with first, and I would go to the into the not domestics, the
wardroom.
The wardroom.
Okay, so you went to the battle stations,
went to
or
the
battle dressing stations.
Battle dressing stations, and there I was with the doc.
Mm-hmm.
And we had two docs again. Each one was at a battle dressing station, and again you have your helmet and your gas mask and everything else, and that if we take a hit, I mean, remember the only time Wisconsin took a hit was during the Korean War,
right?
And so, but if it happens and you have casualties, you're going to have people who are dying or wounded seriously. So you're there to help, to minister to them. I mean, if you know you have a serious wound and you're dying,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to die alone.
Yes.
And the doc is trying to save other people, triage and so forth. He may not have the time to hold your hand as you're dying. Working with the dead and the wounded, to me, when I think of those stories, I feel that's where I belong.
Gene, thank you very much for of course visiting today. Again, welcome home.
Well, thank you very much for having me. This is very wow, memories, many memories, good ones, really very very positive ones.
So as Battleship Operations Manager, I get to do a lot of neat things, but one of the coolest things that I get to do is talk to former crew members. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Keith.
Right,
God bless you.
Thank you,
shipmate. Take care.
Thank you, shipmate.
Thank you for having me.
So thank you all very much for joining me today on this Whiskey Wednesday virtual adventure, and I hope to see you soon.